we've got this going. Looks like everybody's almost downloaded that file. I'm going to now come into your living rooms and demo it full screen. Hopefully it doesn't crash your computers. How we doing? Nobody sees my stuff. Full screen. Oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. There it is, it's coming. Okay, so we went to Blackboard and we downloaded this file. Do me a favor, if you see that you have all this stuff everywhere and you want to kind of clean up your space, or if you want to put away some drawers, or if this happens a lot, like you'll have stuff all over the place and you don't know what's going on, think of this like tabs in a window, and if you want to reset your essentials, this is your essentials. I always go to reset essentials and it kind of cleans up everything, puts it back where it's supposed to be. Okay? Now we've got two things here. We're going to apply a purple to yellow gradient to the square above, like the example on the right. What we're going to do is to apply a gradient. Here's the difficult part. You always have to actually go to the gradient itself and click below the gradient slider. That's automatically going to default you to the black to white gradient, or actually it's here from white to black. The fun thing about this gradient is you see these little squares underneath the sliders. These are the sliders. So I can actually slide this and change the way the gradient looks. But the actual colors in there, if you double click on the gradient itself, you can now change the color. Okay, I'm going to go to my swatches. I'm going to go to purple. All right. I'm going to double click on the other gradient slider and choose yellow, and holy cripes, I'm done. That's it. The good thing about this, though, is if I have this selected now, you have the gradient tool here. The gradient tool is just what it looks like. It's kind of a map of what this is. And if I apply it, I can click and drag this tool so that it does it at different angles. All right? I can do it however I want. In this case, I just wanted to go from here to here. You can experiment with that all you want. But look as well. You've got the sliders. The sliders here I can mess with as much as I want, okay? And you can even get a good stripe going. I think Brad was trying this out, right? Brad, were you trying this out with making the wood grain? Okay. So he's kind of got some, you can kind of increase or decrease the edge of this so that it looks really cool. And anytime that you see that below here, that plus sign, I can add a gradient and make a different color. Alright, so I can start doing rainbow gradients. And that's the same thing here. Add a gradient, or you can actually, below here, you can actually click and drag it down and off, and it deletes the gradient. Click, drag down and off, and it deletes that gradient. Okay, so that's the way you mess with the gradient. You can also set the gradient to be transparent or not. We'll talk about opacity, I guess, in a little bit. There's going to be a whole transparency unit or thing. But let's say that I wanted this to fade to, I don't know, let's have this slider that I have selected, have it fade to 30%. And it kind of gives a subtle fade so that the white shows through a little bit more. If I was to click and drag this over here and send it to the front, you can see what's happening here. We've got solid yellow here that's 100%, and then it fades to 10% purple down there. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this. I call it fun. You call it probably work, but whatever. Sound good? Okay, so that's the gradient here. There's a radial gradient too. I'm going to select, each time that you're doing this, in this actual warm-up, select the object and apply the gradient. Select the object, and now I'm going to apply another gradient. It's called a radial gradient. It's going to show us how to make a highlight, okay, on a circular object, I guess. Okay, so we're going to take the gradient tool. I'm going to apply the gradient. It's a yellow to purple gradient, but I'm going to change the type. The type here is going to be radial, all right? And I'm going to switch this up. I want the light area in the front. So I can actually, you can stick with purple and yellow if you want to. I'm actually going to go for white. I'm going to double click on the square below the slider, select that white, and good enough. You can choose green if you want to. I'm now going to take the gradient tool here, and you see how it's a lot different? I'm going to zoom in on this. Here's the gradient tool. There's one circle, two circles, three circles. These circles denote the actual gradient itself. This one is the where the gradient kind of goes from center. This is an off-center gradient. This is a centered gradient. All right, I can actually move this over to here to make it a kind of a nice looking gradient. I can rotate this around. I can extend this. You have to kind of get used to it. I can make it oblong, and we're going to go over that in the next one. But all we really need to do right now is just get that gradient in the light source, which is coming from the upper right. And what does it say? Apply a radial gradient to the square above, like the example on the right, to highlight a dark sphere. Then make the black shadow with 50% opacity. So then what we're going to do from here is we're just going to take another circle or an ellipse, make a slight shape. Somebody's pointing and clicking. That means that they're not getting seen. Who's that? Is that Michelle? Oh, Michelle. I can hear you. Look on with Johnny, please. You're going to want to know this. All right, so I've got this circle. I'm going to fill it with black. All right, and I'm going to position it and make sure that I set it behind. See, the light source is coming from the front of the ball. If you think about any type of ball, that light source is coming at it from kind of like behind our head if we're looking at it, up to the upper left. So I'm going to make sure the shadow's behind it. All right, that was Control left bracket. And I'm going to select this and set the opacity or the transparency here, the opacity, to 50%. All right, now it looks like it's kind of faded a bit. All right, this is lowering the opacity. It's a really cool thing to do. It makes things faded, and but you still retain the color. All right, opacity has a bunch of fun things going on here. This transparency paddle has a lot going on. I'm going to go over that a little bit more later. All right. It looks like the example to the left. I've read the directions. I feel good about myself. Last one. Now this is fun. To apply a gradient again. I want us to make a comet. All right, and this is working with the interior, actually where the gradient begins in a radial gradient. So it is a radial gradient. I'm going to take the gradient tool. Where are we again? Here you are. And I'm going to extend the radius of it out. Okay, so it kind of looks like you've got this leading edge. It's kind of fun. And then I'm going to squish this down. And then I'm going to turn it again. And now it looks like it's kind of going off into space with a trail. We are going to set this gradient color to black. And this is the fun thing that you have to understand. This is at 100% black. Oh, let me just double click. Okay, you've got your blacks here, right? I've got it purple right now. It's at 75% cyan, which is the blue, and 100% magenta, yellow, and black are 0. Okay, if I just click on the black, what does it say? K is 100%. That's black. That's how they do black because they don't want to confuse B with blue. So they use K for black. But it's not. It's kind of a cruddy looking black, all right? If you want your blacks to print out richer on the printer, tell the printer that you're going to give it 100% yellow, 100% magenta, and 100% cyan. So it's going to use all those inks as well, and you've got a deeper, darker black than you ever had before, all right? That's what I'm asking you to do here, is go to the CMYK here, make sure you're in CMYK mode, and set it to 100% in all those levels. I might need to come after you and help you out individually, but now I've got a good looking comet. I've got 100% black. I always take that black that I just made and I throw it into my swatches. All right, it's not really doing it, but does that make sense? Please read the directions. Put your name at the top of this. You're going to save it to your files, and I would like you to actually have this printed out in color, hole punched, and put into the binder, and I'm going to hand it back to you so you can have it as an example, all right, so that you have it in your binder to know how to do this, okay? Name and also period. Questions? All right, I'm going to press stop.